We'll get this right. We'll get it right one of these days. This whole thing angled out right. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Garrett Smith, the nutrition detective around these YouTube parts, and I've been rearranging my camera angle a little bit. Sorry about that. So today on the Love Your Liver live stream, just so you guys know, if you haven't noticed, my network, what used to be called the Love Your Liver Network, has now been changed to the Nutrition Detective Network. So if you're confused, it did change, and everything's okay. I think I really like the name change. I think it sounds better. It sounds more of like what we're doing, and yeah, it's a good thing. So today is all Q&A. So for those of you who are subscribers to the channel over in the live chat, you can post questions. There is, if you want your question to go to the top of the pile, then that is, you can do a super chat. That is where you contribute a little bit of money, and your question goes to the top of the chat. If you are in the inner circle, which is a group inside of my Nutrition Detective Network, that is where people, each week I spend an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, answering questions with answers that I can't necessarily give here. So that's just a fun place where we can really dive in and not have to worry about anything being any censors or anything like that. So, oh yes. For those of you who want to spread the word, make sure to like the video. If you're in the chat right now, if you want to like it, you'd have to click out of the chat, like it, and then you can come back in the chat, no problem. And then subscribers to the channel are the ones who can ask questions and post in the live chat. And then make sure, if you're watching this later, if you want to get it out there more, make sure to leave a comment. Comments can be as simple as you like. Like I said, they could just be comment. You could leave comment as a comment, and that'll be enough. We just need to have interaction. So let's get into it. So I got a lot of good mornings and a lot of highs. So thank you everybody for coming. And let me see. Gretchen asks, can you talk about if it's ever beneficial to encourage more bile dumping if you still have some cholestasis? Is any bile in the blood damaging? Thanks. Okay. So just so you guys know, so this is the 72nd, 72 in a row. I have not missed a week for 72 weeks. This is 71. So Love Your Liver live stream last week. I've had several people tell me that they thought that was like the best explanation yet of toxic bile theory and cholestasis and what it does in the body. So if you want the basics on that, you may want to go back and watch that live stream, because I did the very first live stream, the very first Love Your Liver live stream. I kind of went over toxic bile theory, and I kind of go over it every week. But the first one I tried to do was the explanation from it back then. And now we're 71 weeks later, and I've refined it a bit, and people really liked that last week. So let me make sure I'll arrange this question in a way that I hope I can explain it fairly quickly. Can I talk about if it's ever beneficial to encourage more bile dumping if you still have some cholestasis? This is like one of the biggest confusions of this whole thing. Because, okay, so cholestasis, toxic bile theory, leaking bile. If you have health issues, you have leaky bile. Bile is leaking into your bloodstream. Some percent of it. Like, we could throw out numbers. We don't really know, but it could be like, somebody might be leaking, somebody who's really healthy, but still has some, maybe they're tired. Maybe they have a little bit of sleep issues. They might be leaking, I don't know, 5%. I'm just throwing out numbers. I'm just making this up so you can understand like the concept. So let's say somebody who's really sick, like let's say they got 3 or 4 autoimmune diseases. Let's just say they're leaking 50% of their bile back into their blood, whether it's from inside the liver itself, which is intrahepatic, or from outside the liver, which would be like leaking from the bile ducts, leaking from leaky gut, bile getting into the blood through going back up into the stomach, which is reflux. They really should call it bile reflux, not acid reflux. So we get we have lots of people who discuss, pushing the detox too hard inside the Love Your Liver program. Where do I go on this? Where do I go? So everything you do, like eating, so what are the things that, we'll go over some agitators and we'll go over things that induce bile dumping. So fats in the diet will cause you to dump bile. Soluble fiber in the diet will cause you to dump bile. Exercise, heat, sweating, stress, sunlight, UVB, like tanning beds or Spurdy. There's lots of, so we are constantly, your liver is constantly making bile. And at times, like if you store bile, why do we have a gallbladder? We have a gallbladder to store bile, like a reservoir, so that we can dump it all at once. Normally, you want to dump that with food, so it mixes with the food, so you don't have just straight, nasty, toxic bile coating your intestines, causing the most damage possible. This is also why, like, let's say you go and you have a really hard exercise session and you feel terrible for 2 or 3 days. You dumped a lot of bile. Or if you go outside in the heat and heat exhaustion, heat stroke, these things are massive dumps of bile. And if you've ever noticed, usually the people who get heat stroke and heat exhaustion the easiest, you kind of know they're not that healthy to begin with. The healthiest people aren't generally getting it, and the unhealthier people are. Well, by definition, the unhealthier people are generally going to be more toxic in their liver, in their bile. So they dump more bile. When they do, more of it goes back into their blood. That's why they're sick. Their bile is more toxic, and then they get heat exhaustion, heat stroke, whatever. Or let's say the people with fibromyalgia who do a little bit too much exercise and they're out for a week. Fibromyalgia is a big toxicity condition. So on the program, people inside the program, or if you're out there trying to do this DIY without using the program, which is a lot tougher, and you get to make all the mistakes we've already made instead of learning about them first. If you go and purposely try to dump bile, or you're doing things that dump more bile than feels good. So think of it this way. This is the concept. Let's say, so remember, I'm just picking out percentages here as an example. Let's say normally somebody who's not well, let's say they make 10 units of bile in a day and they're leaking 30% of that into their blood. Just picking numbers here. So they would normally have 3 units of bile in their blood, and that would cause them a certain amount of symptoms. Let's say they then go and they learn about this stuff. They learn about toxic bile theory and they go, oh, I'm going to dump tons of bile. This is how I'm going to fix myself. So they very quickly do things to increase their bile dumping up to 20 units a day. But they're still leaking 30% because they haven't fixed the leak. Now they have 6 units of bile in their blood, 30% of 20. And now they feel even worse. Do you see how this works? People all the time, they get a hold of this toxic bile theory and they think, first of all, they think they're extra tough and they're just going to grit their teeth and push through it. I'm tough enough. I can take it. I'll push this. Here's the thing to understand. You're sick. And this is just the general you. This is not you specific, Gretchen. You're sick because you have toxic bile in your blood. You don't feel good and you don't like being sick. So you don't like that already. You start going and dumping more bile into your blood, twice as much bile, let's say, you're going to feel twice as bad. How long do you think you can take that if now you're coming to fix the problem already, right? You have years. If you're doing things right, you have 2, 3, 4 years of toxic bile garbage in your liver that you need to get rid of. You think you're going to be able to handle feeling extra bad for 2 or 3 years, 2 or 3 or 4 years? Why do that? Nobody wants you to do that. Nobody's saying to do that. Slow it down. Why not enjoy the health benefits along the way by not pushing yourself so hard that you're making yourself suffer? This is a very, very important concept. This is why I'm constantly telling people, like, the sicker you are, the more leaky you are, and the more toxic your bile is. So the sicker you are, the more you try to purposely increase your bile dumping, the quicker you're going to feel bad. It's just the way it is. Ladies especially. Ladies, I think because of estrogen tends to cause a lot of cholestasis, and ladies tend to store more body fat, so you got more places to store toxins. And ladies don't make as much bile in the first place, which is part of why I think they get more toxic quicker. Ladies tend to be real sensitive to this stuff. And if you push really hard, you're not going to feel good. The bile is the cause of your health problems. This is the most important thing to remember. The bile is the cause of your health problems. Toxic bile and all the crap in it leaking into your blood is the cause of your health problems chronically. The solution to your health problems lies in getting rid of that bile the right way, preferably through the bile going into your intestines and you pooping it out. But you have to understand those two things. If you try to push the bile dumping too hard, it's the cause of your problems. So you're going to make your problems worse. This is the hardest part for people to get. This is why when we go into the Love Your Liver program, I talk about agitators and all this stuff, and people say, Dr. Smith, or they didn't read it, or they didn't listen to my video, and they go, I don't understand. I'm exercising and I feel really not good afterwards. When you get into fast detox, and then you start dumping even more bile, like you start doing things on the program, so your body starts making more bile and dumping more bile, and then you keep doing like the same amount of agitators, you can push yourself over the limit and not feel good. This is my famous saying. This is not a game. So if people want to do it on their own, you can. But we have 4 years worth of knowledge and experience and 1,500 plus people who have been through this stuff already. I'm out here doing this live stream to help people not make the mistakes. Somebody the other day, so one of the big groups that comes to me now is Accutane survivors. Accutane victims is more like it. And so a lot of them they're really giving out Accutane like crazy in countries like India and Pakistan and those countries. And the side effects seem to be really bad there. Well, as I'm going to go over so I took the video on this YouTube page of the vitamin A deficiency doesn't exist. Well, I've expanded that. I have a Twitter thread that's going to be coming out in the next day or two, where I took that video and I made it into a thread. And I have expanded upon how the very obvious thing is all the studies on people where they show that large groups of people have vitamin A deficiency and we're going to give them vitamin A. It's always like malnourished, practically starving people. And they give them some vitamin A and they say, oh, these symptoms got a little better. Well, I can show in the literature that all the vitamin A deficiency symptoms can show up as a mixture of protein deficiency, zinc deficiency, and or taurine deficiency. You need protein to make retinol binding protein to protect you against vitamin A toxicity. You need zinc to make retinol binding protein to protect you against vitamin A toxicity. And I have multiple studies showing that when they tried to make rats toxic with vitamin A, and they tried to make there was some cells. They tried to poison some cells with retinol and retinoic acid, and they used taurine in those rats and in those cells, and they could handle the vitamin A toxicity a lot better. Does this mean just run out and take taurine? You can try it. I talk about it in the Love Your Liver program. It may help, it may not help your symptoms. But basically you can show taurine deficiency symptoms are the same as vitamin A deficiencies or vitamin A deficiency symptoms. What is in muscle meat? Especially red meats. Protein, zinc, taurine. Muscle meat is the best source of those three things. Muscle meat is somewhat, you could consider it protective against vitamin A toxicity. On the other hand, you could then say if people have a muscle meat deficiency, they're going to suffer much worse from vitamin A toxicity. What do I think is going on in these countries that are having real problems with Accutane side effects being so severe? What did they generally not eat a lot of? Red meat. So when those people come to me, wherever they come to me, and the first thing I say is, you probably need to eat more red meat. It doesn't have to be beef. I had somebody go, could I eat lamb? And I was like, yeah, sure. Lamb's red meat. I have to get them doing that first. Here's a little tip on protein. In this program, generally, I have a saying, when in doubt, eat more protein. Am I saying you have to eat red meat all day, every day? That's the only food you eat and you're an all muscle meat carnivore? No, I didn't say that. There are some people doing the program quite well as they're doing an all muscle meat carnivore, but the big difference between them and the purists out there is they're adding some soluble fiber, whether that's in the form of psyllium, whether that's in the form of sun fiber, whether that's however they're deciding to add it, but they're adding some soluble fiber because soluble fiber binds up bile and helps you poop it out. This is why we don't need to blindly follow like vegans, no animal products, or like carnivores, no plant products. We don't need to do that. We are smarter than that. Those diets were partially designed for people who don't want to have to think. They just look at a food and they go, is it plant? Is it animal? One good, one bad. That's what it helps people to turn off their brain. We're not trying to do that here. So if you want to turn off your brain, this is not the place for you. Okay? So I hope that explained why you don't just want to encourage bile dumping. Because if you're sick, you're already leaking. So if you push it too hard, you're going to feel worse in exactly the same ways you already do. And if you do it enough, you may notice new symptoms. That's why this is not a game. If you don't know what you're doing, and I'm going to tell you, a lot of people try to go out in the research and interpret the research on their own. I'm going to tell you, I've already seen that research. I've already tried these things. Some of the research that says you think it's going to be good for you is exactly the opposite. Taking supplements to try to speed up your ALDH or increase. Let me give you a quick example. I just had to talk to somebody, a client of mine, who purposely was taking burdock root to try to increase their bile dumping. They were doing exactly what I say not to do. And they dug themselves into a big hole. Like they really started dumping way too much bile to the point that they were sending themselves backwards in health. And I said, I talked to him and we worked on what to do to get out of this. I'm glad he talked to me because he understood. This person very intelligently understood that what they did was, it was against what I said, against what I advise. They decided to be, kind of the tough guy and push ahead. And I mean, I appreciate I want to say I appreciate people. They're trying to get out of it. They're working hard. They're doing what they can, but there's also bad approaches. And trying to do herbs or other things to purposely increase your bile dumping. And if you don't understand that bile dumping can make you much worse, you can dig yourself a hole that's going to be tough to get out of, because now you just got tons of dumping too much bile too quickly. Remember, it's the bile that eats through your liver cells. It eats through the liver bile ducts. It eats through the big bile ducts. It eats through your leaky gut. It eats through your stomach. What do you think? Do you actually think that your stomach can't handle stomach acid? Your stomach's designed for stomach acid. Why would stomach acid start eating through your stomach? That doesn't make any sense. But what about if you have toxic bile constantly going up into your stomach and your stomach is not intended for it? Might it eat holes in your stomach called ulcers? It can eat through your liver cells. It can eat through your bile ducts. It can eat through your common bile ducts. It can eat through your gallbladder, and your gallbladder's designed for toxic bile. Toxic bile is the cause of leaky gut. So if you push dumping bile too hard, it actually makes your cholestasis, your leaky bile, worse. This is not a game. We are getting people healthy, but if you try to go out there and cowboy it and you have no idea what you're doing, and then the worst part is you don't listen to your body as you see things potentially getting a little worse, and then you ignore that and then they get worse, and then you ignore that and things get even worse because you just think, oh, it'll pass. No, don't. You have years of this toxicity in you. Years. It's not going to get better in a month. If you're not ready to settle in to get your health better over a year, 2 year, 3 years, you don't want to do this. Go find somebody else out there who's going to give you some crappy herb to make you feel better short term, and then wonder why when that herb stops working, when the honeymoon phase is over, why you're even worse than when you began, because they didn't do anything good for you. Wonder why you get addicted to coffee enemas. What do enemas do? They induce diarrhea. What's probably in that diarrhea? There's probably some bile in there. Why do people feel better immediately after a coffee enema? Because they crapped out a bunch of the bile that was causing them problems. Why when people have nausea and they take some charcoal, or an upset tummy and they take charcoal and it makes it go away? Because they just soaked up the bile in their stomach. Okay? So dumping bile, like lactoferrin, can increase bile production. Okay, this can be good. This can aggravate people. When people know they have acid reflux, right? Bile reflux up into their stomach, lactoferrin tends to aggravate that because it pushes more bile. I had a woman who was improving in all sorts of ways taking lactoferrin, but it was also making her reflux so bad she couldn't sleep. She didn't want to quit it because it was helping her feel so much better. Probably helping with her copper toxicity, probably helping with iron overload, helping to repair the bile ducts. But she was getting worse bile reflux, acid reflux at night. She couldn't even sleep. So I had to say, one of these is going to break. You can keep pushing it. The bile reflux, you got years of this toxic stuff coming back up. It's not going to go away anytime soon. If you would like to sleep, you're going to have to make a choice. You're either going to have to take a lot less lactoferrin, or you're going to have to skip it completely for a while until we can bring it back in. So, but this person is so much better than when she came to me. She tells me that her husband, when she's still got some little of these nagging things, she tells me that her husband has to remind her, do you remember how bad you used to be? Look where you are now. So he's reminding her, like, yes, you still have some things that we're trying to fix, but also you are so much better than you were before. And she knows this. So this is what we're doing. The bile is the cause of your problems, and the bile is the solution to your problems. You have to understand how and when to push, and how and when to take your foot off the gas pedal, or you're going to crash. Right? You go around a turn, you got to put your foot on the brake, or you're just going to go right into the wall. Don't do that. That's not what we're trying to do. Okay, so the question here, is any bile in the blood damaging? To some extent. let's put it this way. Like, okay, so people out there who are knowingly or unknowingly shilling for the pharmaceutical and the industrial poison and chemical industries love to say the poison is in the dose. Or they'll say correlation is not causation. Okay. Let's have fun with use the poison is in the dose with mercury. And you go, is there a dose of mercury that is not a poison? And they might say yes, but that would sound kind of stupid because there's no reason for mercury to be in the body. There is no benefit. There is no magical enzyme pathway that needs mercury to run. We could be pretty sure that everybody in this modern world has more mercury than they need in their system by definition, because you don't need any of it. So then we start going, well, maybe the poison is not in the dose. Maybe a poison is a poison. A poison can be a poison. And that's all it is. But the dose determines, let's say at this dose, at this level in your system, you have no symptoms that you can notice. Okay, like if your energy level was 1% less, do you think you're going to notice that? You're not sensitive enough to notice that your energy level is 1% less because of some level of toxicity in your body. But let's say when the mercury level gets to this, you start getting a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of trouble sleeping. But you're not testing mercury that often. You may not even know that mercury is a toxin or that is something that's showing up in all the fish and shellfish that you eat. Or you've had your mercury fillings for 40 years. It can't suddenly be the mercury fillings that are causing your problems, could it? Toxins accumulate, folks. So the problems slowly get worse over time. But it's really hard to say that the toxin caused it when you've had it for 30 or 40 years, right? Because you go, I've just always had this problem. That's just the way I am. No, you have mercury poison in your mouth. Okay. Or you got on a fish kick. So then you get up to here and the symptoms get really bad. Maybe you go to a doctor who checks you out for mercury, and like me, where I tell you, avoid these things because they are mercury poisoning you, guaranteed. And then you start doing it, and then your levels start coming down, and then you get better. So sometimes a poison is just a poison. It's just whether or not you can notice the symptoms. Let me give you a quick example of mercury. I don't know if I've gone over this before, but when I used to eat sushi on a fairly irregular basis, but I used to enjoy it, maybe like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 times a year. This is long ago. This is years ago. I started noticing that after I would eat sushi, I'd go to bed and I would have palpitations in my chest. I could feel my heart beating in my chest laying there at night. And I couldn't fall asleep until about midnight. Normally I go to bed like 9. So I started going, okay, it's something about this dinner that is causing the problems. And I didn't want to believe it was mercury. So I started trying, being the detective or the nutrition science guy that I like to think of myself as. I started changing variables in the sushi meals. So sometimes I would go and I would once I didn't get the sushi rice. I just got I forget what the just fish is, nigiri, whatever. So I skipped the rice because I thought maybe it's the rice. Okay. Another time I went, I thought, okay, I was like, I'm not going to get the Sapporo beer or whatever. I'm not going to get beer. Okay, I tried that. I thought I'm not going to get eel. I'm going to use, and another time I'm not going to use the full sodium soy sauce. I'm going to use the low sodium soy sauce. Maybe it was a salt thing. None of those helped. Okay, so I'm still experimenting, going, it's got to be something about it. Then I started going, well, maybe it's just the fish or the eel. And if you didn't know, eel, super high in vitamin A. Don't eat eel. Eel used to be my favorite sushi. Of course, I had to poison myself. I'm here because I've done it all to myself. Anyway, one day I was going with some friends to an all-you-can-eat sushi place. And I thought I had some chelating agents, some chelator capsules, some DMSA at my office because I used to be into the heavy metal thing. I don't do that stuff anymore. But I thought, let me go take some right before I eat. And if it's the mercury, this should help. I took those 5 capsules as soon as I sat down in the restaurant with some water, had no problems that night. I immediately knew, dang it, it's the mercury. There's also a lot of cadmium in fish and shellfish. You can see mercury and cadmium rise on a hair test the more fish people eat. What does DMSA chelate a lot? Cadmium and mercury. I repeated the experiment. I went to sushi again, a couple, maybe 6 months later. Actually, I didn't go to, actually, it's probably a year or two later because I stopped eating sushi. I was just like, why am I putting poison in my body that then I have to take something to grab onto the poison? Like, that doesn't make sense. But anyway, I went again and I had a couple of those chelating capsules left and I took them, had no problem sleeping again. So, and then there was the next time, there was the confirmation when we used to make at the house with my ex-wife, we used to make cod or salmon on occasion. And I told her, I said, I don't really want to eat this because of the mercury. And then one night she had it. As soon after I had started figuring this out. And as we're laying in bed, it's midnight. And she says to me, after we had fish, she says, we're not eating fish anymore. As she's laying there, can't sleep, heart pounding, mercury problem. And I said, yeah, I don't want to. Take it off the grocery list. We're not buying it anymore. So not many people would be able to figure out that it was a mercury problem causing that. The poison's in the dose. No, sometimes a poison is just a poison. Vitamin A is not essential. We know it's a toxin. So that means there is no poison is in the dose. If something's toxic and it's not essential, if something's toxic at high doses and it's not essential, it means it's a poison. Like, so then people might say, well, what about water? Well, water is essential. Yes, you could overdose on water and kill yourself. There's a difference. Water is essential. Protein is essential. Zinc is essential. Could you take too much zinc and get a zinc overdose? Sure. Why would anybody argue against that? But zinc is essential. Vitamin A is not, as I'm going to show from multiple studies in animals and humans that they've shown before that vitamin A is not necessary. You can go watch that video right now if you want. So I hope I answered that to your satisfaction, Gretchen. So, Michael says, how come psychiatrists are such ignorance about the mind and toxins? What's the saying? It is, it's about the guy who does, understanding a problem would affect his income. Somebody find that quote. It is, I can't remember it right now. Anyway, but the psychiatrists are drug pushers, generally. They gave up on, psychiatrists gave up on like counseling and therapy long ago, generally, because they're captured by the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, that's why there's psychologists and there's psychiatrists. Psychiatrists are drug pushers. Psychologists are trying to do counseling and therapy and all that stuff. The funny thing is tons of your mental issues, folks, your anxiety, your depression. We have a testimonial from a guy who fixed his PTSD. He says he fixed his PTSD doing what we suggest. Did I ever do any counseling or therapy with him? No. We got the toxins out of him. Because just think, if you have toxins in your brain that keep stimulating a certain mechanism, and that mechanism is going to find something to grab onto, like an example would be oftentimes when you wake up in the middle of the night, 2 to 4 a.m. That's a bile dump. So you wake up at night, you dumped bile, and then what does your brain do when you try to lay down and go back to sleep? it will find something to obsess on, to think about, to keep running through your head. Well, why isn't the same thing? Why isn't that PTSD? Where like when let's say somebody in the military who's really toxic, they got all the shots. They were given meds that they never really wanted or needed. They were fed military government food. They were living in moldy houses. Go look up military housing and mold. Disgusting. This is what we do for the people who protect our country. And then they go in, and then, oh wait, I didn't see there is a retinoid related receptor that they found makes somebody more susceptible to PTSD. Let me find it. I talked about this on my forum. Here, I will share the testimonial on PTSD. I'll share the post where it talks about, let me find it. Retinoids activate the irritant receptor TRPV1 and produce sensory hypersensitivity. No, that's not the one. That's not the one. Where was it? Where was it? Those of you with kids who have like hypo and hypersensitivity, yeah, vitamin A is making it worse. Oh wait, I think it's in that testimonial. I think the link to the here it is. Yes. It's in that testimonial. Here's the article. A gene for PTSD. Researchers have found a gene that can increase or decrease the risk of PTSD. Here's the quote. They found a statistically significant association with a variant of the retinoic acid orphan receptor A, RORA, which was unfamiliar to them at the time. RORA has never been linked to PTSD before, to our knowledge. But when we read up on it, we found that it had previously been linked to other disorders such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, bipolar disorder, autism, and depression. In other words, it was a psychiatrically relevant gene. So now let me go and find one of my favorite articles, The Neurotoxic Effects of Vitamin A and Retinoids. I've linked this before. Just how toxic vitamin A is to your brain. And then they're saying, oh, there's this gene that statistically connects to all these neurological disorders. It's not there because it's not there because it's helping you. Don't believe all the genetic research. I just had somebody tell me yesterday that they wasted 3 or 4 years of their life in terms of regaining their health and trying to have better health, going down the genetics and epigenetics rabbit holes. There's a saying in genetics, folks. Genetics loads the gun. Environment pulls the trigger. A gun is not dangerous if you don't pull the trigger. You're going to have a loaded gun. That's your genetics. That's what you're born with. You're going to have a loaded gun. Environment means everything that your body's exposed to. It means stress. It means toxicity. It means mineral excesses or deficiencies. It means things you were born with. It means pokies that you got. It means medications that you've taken. It means fad diets that you've done. Environment pulls the trigger. Then the damage happens. This is a genetics thing. Geneticists should be saying, yeah, genetics aren't that important. It's what is in your body triggering the genetics. But do geneticists want to keep their jobs, keep their income? Of course they do. So what do they say? Genetics are important. What are people selling you all these mega dose supplements to fix your little weak genes, your dirty genes? They just want to make money. And maybe you see some benefits for a while, but it's not fixing the problem. You just said that you're changing the environment to try to band-aid or crutch your genetic problem. Here's a hint. None of you out there have a pharmacological dosage of B vitamin deficiency because you got those genetics from somewhere. How did your mom live? How did your grandma live without pharmacological doses of B vitamins? How did they live to make you? Because they weren't as toxic and they weren't as mineral deficient. So it didn't pull the trigger. Also, when you start looking up, you can look up methylation on my forum. Oh, I found a bunch of studies that showed vitamin A affects methylation. Imagine that. Here, wait, let me find the do I have the glyphosate one in here? Ah, yes, glyphosate inducing both undermethylation and overmethylation. Environment pulls the trigger. Well, let's just say you have a tendency towards overmethylation and then you eat, have glyphosate come in and it makes you go worse. Maybe you're an undermethylator, you have glyphosate come in and it makes that problem worse. Do you see how it's the toxin driving it? So if you have toxicity or deficiencies that are very specifically related to your methylation, those are much more important to address than going and trying to take orthomolecular gigantic doses of supplements, which aren't fixing the problem. When they say, oh, I have the MTHFR gene and I don't detox as well, or I have the CBS gene and I don't detox as well. Well, how about this? How about you stop putting things through that detox pathway? Wouldn't that be the first thing? I'm slow at detoxing this. Okay, stop putting it in. Got a CBS gene that's related to sulfur? We'll stop putting sulfur in. This is not right. Don't give yourself more work. Don't give your liver more work. This is why I always tell people with all these supplements you're taking, if you're not noticeably benefiting from it, stop taking it. Break all your supplements down into single ingredients and find out, does that actually help you or not? Stop overloading your liver with giant combination supplements. Because if even one of those things in that supplement is bad for you, which you can't tell because you're taking 30 things in a powder, if even one of those things in the supplement is bad for you, the whole thing is bad for you. The negative of that one thing outweighs the positives of all the other ones. If not now, later. What's the saying we go by here? The poison always wins. So think about this. Let's say you used to eat liver and you felt great on it because it had some nutrient in it that your body needed. Okay. Well, the whole time you're eating all that liver, you're accumulating vitamin A and copper in your system. You're storing it in your liver. And those are toxic and they will eventually build up to the point that they cause you problems. So you keep eating the liver and maybe you're getting this nutrient, but you're slowly becoming more and more and more and more toxic. Eventually, the symptoms of the toxicity are going to outweigh whatever benefit you used to get. And then you know what people do? They think, I don't understand why I'm feeling worse. I should eat more liver. And they get worse. Maybe they'll triple down. And then they wonder why they're broken and why no one can get them better. And sometimes they'll be like, the only time I feel better is when I eat that little bit of liver, but then I feel so much worse for days afterwards. And you go, you stuck yourself in a detox loop, a toxicity detox loop. It's like an alcoholic, right? The alcohol is killing them, but they're addicted to it. Gosh, retinol's an alcohol. That's a weird coincidence. So, oh, there we go. Ramon. Okay. Ramon says, some say you shouldn't mix fats and carbs because it activates the Randle cycle. Can you explain the Randle cycle and if fats and carbs can be mixed? I'm not going to explain the Randle cycle. I'm just going to explain the way I do it. So, fats and carbs shouldn't be mixed. Well, you might have to talk to nature about that because, like, nuts have some of both. You know, horse meat is sweet because it has glycogen in it. Apparently, you know, there's fats. This is where when people get into this, like, there is no pure food. Like the PUFA people, every naturally occurring fat in existence has PUFAs in it. So you can't have a zero PUFA diet. Nearly every food you can imagine has some amount of vitamin A in it. So you can't have a zero vitamin A diet. One of the things that irritates me is when people say that Grant Generou's diet is like zero vitamin A. Grant never said that. Because Grant understands. But other people are saying this is like a zero vitamin A diet. And I'm like, there is no muscle meat out there that is zero vitamin A. They feed those cows vitamin A all the time. Of course, it's got vitamin A in it. So, pretty much every food that's got fat in it is going to have, and unless it's been industrially processed or somehow processed, is going to have some amount of fats and carbs in it, or fats and proteins in it, or it's going to be some combination. One of the things that I advise for the majority of people who tend to be overtypes, which I talk about in the program, overtypes are very good at making body fat. They don't need extra fats added to their diet. The people who are eating, let's lay this down as the extremes. The people who are eating excessive amounts of fats, they're adding fats, they're trying to eat super fatty foods, they're doing all that stuff. If they eat carbs, they got problems. But they're also eating a diet that I don't agree with. They're shoving down tons of fats. And for those of you who think that fats are good for bile dumping, fats do increase bile dumping, but fats also increase the reabsorption of bile right back to your liver. And fats are how we store fat-soluble toxins in the liver. That's not good. So yes, you do dump more bile with fats, but you reabsorb more bile with fats, and you store toxins in your liver with fats. So what I'm getting at is don't force more fats into your diet. Now, for you undertypes, typically underweight, you're going to need some amount of fat in your diet, maybe even some added fats, because underweight people are not good at making body fat. They're not good at storing stuff. So we kind of have to give them a little bit of help. But this is why this is why everybody out there who wants there just to be one human diet, no, I'm sorry, it doesn't exist. It does not exist. So, what I tell people about fats in their diet is eat whole foods. Some of those foods are going to contain fat. Don't try to eat excessively fatty foods. And the only fats that you add should be minimal, and you should choose them very carefully. So the people who are talking about fats and carbs together are probably talking about added fats. I mean, how are they going to argue that you can't eat like whole foods? I mean, even grains, if you have a big enough, nutrition info on grains, you're going to find fats in grains. Wheat germ oil. Where do you think they get the oil from? Right? There's fat in wheat. It's really high in manganese. Don't do wheat germ oil. Don't supplement oils. That's an easy one. So generally for overtypes, especially if you're overweight, generally the less added fats you put in your day, the better off you're going to be. And if you get your fats from whole foods, I mean, is anyone out there going to argue that getting your fats from whole foods, a whole food diet that includes meats and, maybe some nuts and seeds, fruits, low vitamin A fruits, low vitamin A vegetables, beans, whole grains, is somebody going to say that humans can't survive on the amount of fat that's in a diet made of whole foods? Really? So then all of a sudden, we have now minimized this supposed problem of the Randle cycle by simply not adding fats. Whenever people got into the omega-3 to omega-6 and this imbalance and all that stuff, all these problems came about when people started adding fats to their diets. That's how you would get imbalance. Are people actually going to argue that a whole foods diet somehow can't give you the right fatty acid balance by itself? I mean, of course, okay, don't eat nuts all day long. Well, duh, right? So, and I'm not a big fan of the keto approach. The Joe Rogan, let me find that video. Joe Rogan, carnivore diet and the problems with keto. So those of you who understand toxic bile theory and other stuff of this nature, when you watch Joe Rogan talk about, like, I don't know if they call it the carnivore flu, they definitely talk about the keto flu. What you're seeing in those problems is a massive shift in bile flow. When people go on carnivore and they're leaking bile out of their butthole, when he says can't trust a fart, or he's getting like this toxic black liquid diarrhea, that's bile. That's not good bile. That's very toxic bile. Black bile. Ooh. What did Galen say about that? Wait. Let's go see what Galen said about black bile. Theories on bile being the cause of disease has been around since Galen. Let's see if I can find anything good on it quickly. But why would somebody be having a bunch of bile diarrhea? Because they just switched from a diet that had some fiber in it, some soluble fiber in it, to a diet that has no fiber in it, nothing to bind it. The bile is just touching your intestines. Okay, let's see. Galen's characterization of black bile and the mechanisms by which it causes disease. So, let's see. The book begins with a brief history of humoral theory, unsurprisingly with a particular focus on black bile. Let us not forget, I hope someday that my information gets to Joe Rogan to help him, but let's not forget Joe Rogan is on testosterone replacement therapy, and growth hormone, which means that his health is not great. If you got to take those things to bring your levels to normal, your health is not good. If you want to watch my labs video, I'm going to be doing new labs fairly soon. But if you want to watch my labs video where, my total testosterone is 900 at the age of 47, that's on this YouTube channel. I'm not on testosterone replacement therapy. I never will be. But so he takes tons of supplements, tons of stuff that I would say don't do. So he's got black bile coming out. And Galen dedicates tons of his book on the causes of disease as black bile. So anyway, I'm not going to read any more of that. I don't have a specific part I wanted to read from it. So, Pierre was asking Ramon, does your question also relate to soluble fiber since fat shouldn't be mixed with soluble fiber? What we've just found, this is something that we found that Karen Hurd, the bean queen, noticed that beans, soluble fiber in beans mixed with a lot of fat tended to cause some digestive upset like gas and bloating and just not feeling very good. Well, here's the thing to remember. Bile causes more, added fats cause more bile dumping. Okay. You put down beans and the soluble fiber causes bile dumping. Soluble fiber can soak up bile, but soluble fiber can also be fermented by the gut bacteria. If you have health issues, you have toxic bile. If you have toxic bile, you have a messed up gut biome that is making secondary bile acids. Fat generally, this is a big problem. You're going to have a bunch of bile, tons of bile, causing gut problems, aggravating your gut biome into making more secondary bile acids. Secondary bile acids cause cholestasis all by themselves. They can give rats an injection of lithocholic acid, a secondary bile acid, and I think it was within an hour they could cause cholestasis. Very important to not make more secondary bile acids. And for those of you who are out there taking liver supplements, TUDCA and UDCA is a secondary bile acid. You're taking one of the most toxic bile acids that you could take. Yes, you can use toxins to relieve symptoms and make things look better, but long term, it's going to end badly. I have a cirrhosis person, primary biliary cirrhosis, where one of the things I had to do to get her better was get her off of the UDCA that was prescribed to her by a doctor. That was part of getting her better. So let me go back up here. Let me see, because I want to go. Okay, Sam asks, in the long run, do ox biles hurt or help, or does it depend on how you use it? I suddenly became very intolerant to white rice, and I don't know why that happened. Any theories? White rice, man, I mean, so if you're out there and the only thing you tolerate is white rice, in terms of a grain, I mean, yes, you can do it. There are people on Twitter, Sebastian Powell, Seb Powell, I think is his @ there are people on Twitter who kind of like what I do is they're linking tons of disease in the history of humans to arsenic toxicity. Rice is the biggest source of arsenic in people's diets. And no, getting white rice doesn't fix it. We had a guy who he tested his blood arsenic after a month of brown rice and he got his number. He took a month off of rice completely. Then he ate a month of white rice and he retested his blood arsenic, and his blood arsenic was higher after the month of white rice. I have a whole video in the network about different preparation methods for rice. I still don't eat it. I don't like rice. I don't get along with it. I tend to burp it up. Something about my body doesn't like rice. And rice is absolutely, I can basically look at hair tests and be like, so how often are you eating rice? Like I can tell that people are eating rice by their arsenic level on a hair test. So they're getting arsenic in their system. They stop eating rice, the arsenic level goes down. Sometimes I look at their hair tests and I go, well, your arsenic's pretty good. Are you eating any rice? And they go, yeah, but I'm doing the prep methods. And I go, oh, that makes sense. And then you get other people who are like, yeah, I don't have any time for that. I don't do it. And their arsenic's much higher. So why might you all of a sudden not be tolerating white rice? Well, sometimes the body just says, I've had enough of this food. For whatever reason, it could be that the food is lacking in something you need. You have to remember your body intuitively might be doing this to you. You're like, I don't want to eat that because it's lacking in this, or it's got too much of this arsenic. Now, I'm not trying to say that, like, so if you're out there and you're struggling with your health and white rice is one of the only things you tolerate and you need calories, and let's say you're an underweight person, don't kick out the rice. But one of the things you can do to prep the rice to soak up the arsenic the most is just when you soak the rice overnight before you cook it. Just in the fridge, put it in a bowl with water enough to cover it, maybe a little more water than that. And then add, I don't know, I don't have a specific amount on this, half a teaspoon of charcoal to that water, stir it up, let it sit overnight. That charcoal will soak up the arsenic that goes into the water. Here's the reason why you don't want to cook rice the normal way in a rice cooker or something like that is when you put rice in water, the arsenic moves into the water. This is known. If you cook the rice the normal way, where you cook off all of the liquid and you just have the rice left, so think about it. You had the water and the rice. The arsenic moves into the water. It's not in the rice right now. And you cook away all the water. When the water evaporates, it doesn't take the arsenic with it. It leaves it in the water that's left. So if you cook off all the water, you just put all the arsenic right on the outside of the rice. That's how that works. So if you're gonna do anything where you're preparing the rice in an excess of water, or you're soaking the rice, or you're rinsing the rice, you have to get rid of the water that touched the rice before you eat it. But boiling off the water just leaves the arsenic on the rice. If the water has charcoal in it, the arsenic will bind to the charcoal. And then you rinse off the charcoal water. Simple as that. But if you don't do these things, you are putting arsenic into your system. And Sam, your body may be saying, I got enough arsenic. I'm going to tell you that I don't want it. You got let's say some level of arsenic toxicity. And now your body's saying, your body's having a reaction to when you add more arsenic to the system. It's a toxicity reaction. That's possible. Could be that your body's saying food is not sufficient. I don't have enough nutrients to process it. So we're going to have reactions when you have it because it's going to worsen your nutrient deficiency because it's lacking in something you're already low in. How do I fix these things? Well, I do the nutrient testing. That's what I do. And on the hair test, we could see, arsenic. But ox bile long term, so ox bile would be a Band-Aid. The one time I can imagine taking ox bile would be if somebody had SIBO. Small intestinal bowel overgrowth. Small intestine bowel overgrowth. Or bacterial overgrowth. Bacterial overgrowth. Small intestine bacterial overgrowth. Don't need to say bowel twice. It's kind of redundant. It has been shown in the research that SIBO happens. Where does bile dump to? The first place bile dumps to after it goes through the bile ducts is into the small intestine right after it comes out of the stomach. You can go look at a picture online. So your stomach empties into the start of the small intestine. It goes just a little ways, and then there's the liver with the bile ducts coming from the liver that dumps right into the small intestine. Okay? One of the positive things that bile does, bile has multiple purposes. The body is amazingly designed. One of the things that proper bile does in your small intestine is it inhibits SIBO from happening. So then if you start going, well, I've got all these health problems and the doctor says I've got SIBO. Where's the bile? Why is the bile not going into your intestine? Where is it going? Oh, it's probably leaking into your bloodstream. You may have intrahepatic cholestasis where the bile never even makes it to your gut, or a lot of it never makes it to your gut, not enough to inhibit the bacterial overgrowth. So if you were to take ox bile ox bile would stay in your digestive system, at least it should. I mean, you're all leaky. So most of it would stay in your digestive system, hopefully, and then it goes to your small intestine, and you've got some bile there now to inhibit bacterial overgrowth. That would be the main thing. But then you're also going to reabsorb. You reabsorb on it's, the statistics are you reabsorb 95% of the bile that gets into your intestine. So your liver pushes the bile into your intestine and you reabsorb 95% of that. You only excrete 5% out through your poop. So you just added bile that's now going to be reabsorbed and go right back into your liver. Now your liver has to deal with that bile. You see how this is a tough call. What do we want to do? What would be optimal? We stop putting in the toxins so our bile becomes less toxic. That will reduce cholestasis. We help the toxins to get out of our bowel via things like soluble fiber and charcoal. Don't take charcoal if you're constipated. It will make you even more constipated because it's bile that triggers your normal pooping. So if you don't poop well, you don't have enough bile in your guts, and you put charcoal down there and it soaks up all the bile, you're not going to poop for days. So don't. If you want to get your pooping again, join the Love Your Liver program and we talk about that. The third thing is you need minerals to run the whole show. Your liver needs minerals to run. Specific minerals, not a magical combination trace mineral supplement that's full of all the minerals, which means it's got all the toxic minerals in it too. We don't use any shotgun BS mineral approaches. We are far more pragmatic and scientific than throwing crap at a wall and hoping it sticks. Half the things in multivitamins are poisons anyway. So those were the theories on the white rice and the arsenic. I'm not getting through a whole lot of questions today because I really expanded on these things. Emma asks, I'm curious about what HCG has done to my liver and cannot find the verbiage for research. Do you know what HCG does to the liver? I have not looked that up. There was dark days in my practice where I did the HCG diet with people. I've made mistakes. I've learned from them. I would never do a 500 calorie diet is insanity. I don't care what you're doing with it. We all have made mistakes in our past. I used to use HCG when I did a very short, 6-month experiment with testosterone replacement therapy. I was using HCG with it. So here's what we would do. Here, let's do the search. HCG liver injury. PubMed. Let's see. So we're going to Liver Talks. The government, the National Library of Medicine, they have articles on these things. So let me see. I'm going to say, so Emma, your question in terms of HCG, if you were doing it with the HCG diet, the thing that probably caused more potential damage was the diet, because it was by definition a low protein diet. I mean, even if you, if you had 500 calories a day of all protein, that would be 125 grams of protein, which would be plenty, but that's not what people are eating on the HCG diet. So one of the things that will cause cholestasis or liver injury or toxic leaky bile is a low protein diet. Let's see. I'm looking here. Common side effects of HCG include headache, nausea. What would cause nausea other than bile going back up into the stomach? Anorexia, which would be not wanting to eat. Okay, one of the things that can cause not wanting to eat is when you have bile leaking directly into your blood. And your body says, look, we've already got this cholestasis problem. The bile's leaking right into our blood. Anorexia doesn't mean like a woman just deciding not to eat to be skinny. Anorexia means you don't want to eat, basically. It means you're not eating for whatever reason. Anorexia is not eating. Just like atrophy of your muscles just means your muscles are shrinking and getting weaker. It doesn't say what the cause is. Okay, so anorexia is just like basically not eating. Okay. So one of the things this especially happens in underweight types, it helps to cause them to be underweight. They have a lot of bile going straight into their blood. What causes bile dumping? Eating. So if you were already dumping too much bile into your blood and it was causing you symptoms, your body's intelligent. Your body is intelligent. Your body would say, well, look, if we eat right now, eating triggers bile dumping. We've already got too much bile in our blood. So the body being intelligent is going to say, don't eat right now. That would be bad because you're just going to dump bile and it's going to go the wrong way. Okay? Like nausea. Oh, like headache, bile going into the blood. Wait, let me go check. Let's go check this. Let's go see serum, bile, migraine, PubMed. Let's go see if we can link toxic bile. Oh, serum. Wait. Here we go. Maybe something here. Paper on migraines that was about lipids, but they're not looking at. One of the words you can look for to try to find bile studies is metabolomics. METABOLOMICS. Metabolomics or metabolomics. I thought that was going to be a good. So, but they're saying serum lipid abnormalities in migraine. That's the paper, but I don't think they do bile in there. That's not what we want. Let's go. Doesn't look like they've studied it. Let me do metabolomics. No. Oh, here, let me do cholestasis. No. Nothing obvious today for that one. But HCG, I mean, so here's the deal about whatever you're worried about, any of you out there, whatever you're concerned about, what did this do? What did this cause? This is the first idea I want you to grasp is first thing is you don't want to do it anymore, right? If you're digging a hole, stop digging. So we stop putting the poisons in, right? The poison always wins. So the first thing you better do is stop putting the poison in. So we get off the HCG. We make sure we're not on a low protein diet. We make sure we're not on a high fat diet. We make sure we're not on a high fructose diet. That does not mean when I say a high fructose diet, that does not mean you can't eat any low vitamin A fruit. Okay. A high fructose diet. We're not trying to do that. We're not on like an all fruit diet. We're not drinking soda. We're not adding sugar to things. That's how you get to a relatively much lower fructose diet. The amount of fructose in fruit, whole fruit, low vitamin A, whole fruit is not to be concerning. So anyway, we make sure we're doing the right things with our diet. We avoid the poisons. We start doing things to get the poisons out without pushing them too hard and then we get the basic minerals that we need. We don't worry about what's in the past. Like if somebody took Accutane, or if you took HCG, or you took Cipro and you got floxed, all of them, what they cause, the cause of leaky bile is what we call liver injury, which is cholestasis, which is then toxic bile leaking into your blood. We can't go back in time and not have you do this stuff, right? It's done. What's done is done. Set in motion. All we can do now is say, let's start fixing it. Some people really want to know how much damage was done, but I tend to find that that's just gonna, looking for that is kind of like, it's like, sometimes people are using that to get like deeper into the victim mentality and I'll never get out. And I don't like that. I'm not trying to do that to people. We are trying to give hope here. So focusing on what the damage was, like, I mean, I could look at the damage that I caused myself. I mean, I took antibiotics. I had the normal shots as a kid. Ketoconazole when I was a teenager really messed me up. I've done all the fad diets. I took astaxanthin. I did raw liver. I did tons of adding spinach to my food, lots of eggs. I did dairy. I've done all of it. I did vitamin A supplements. I did liver pills. Like I should someday go through a list. Maybe I'll do that next week where I'll go through all the things I can think of that I did that damaged my liver, especially with vitamin A toxicity. I don't worry about these things anymore because I'm not doing them anymore. It's like I've kind of forgiven myself for what I did to myself and what I did to my clients, my patients before I knew about this. That, I mean, people might be like, well, how could you do that? And I'll say, but everybody else is still doing it. I'm the one guy out here trying to say, don't do this now. Why are you going to kill the messenger when I didn't know, but everybody else doesn't know? And they're still doing it. Why would you be mad at me? Right? This is forgiveness of yourself is super important, or else just stuff eats away at you. I could have quit medicine and be like, oh my gosh, I know the damage I did now to people, and I have to quit what I'm doing because I feel so bad. Well, how many people would I help then? Right? You want to help yourself, forgive yourself for the mistakes that you made. Don't worry about what happened. Just know that the cool thing about the Love Your Liver program and the testing and consultation that we do is it's encompassing. We are basically just making your liver healthier. We assume that the divine energy in you knows how to fix your body. We simply give the body what it needs, help it get rid of what it doesn't want around, and then get the heck out of the way. We are deferring to the wisdom of the body, the divine energy that we were all given to be here. We are not trying to make the body fix itself in a certain way. That's what everybody else is trying to do. They use herbs and drugs and super mega dose supplements to like make the blood tests look the way they want. That's functional medicine. Functional medicine is forcing the blood tests to look the way you want them to. That's not what we do. If I see a deficiency of an essential nutrient, like does anybody have a NAC deficiency? No one has a NAC deficiency. No one has a statin deficiency. No one has a valerian root deficiency. No one has a milk thistle deficiency. Do people have zinc deficiencies, selenium deficiencies, molybdenum deficiencies, magnesium deficiencies, potassium deficiencies? Absolutely. So we fix those. Those are essential nutrients. Can people be protein deficient? Oh, you'll see that in the Twitter thread about vitamin A deficiency not existing. Protein deficiency and dry eye go right hand in hand. But dry eye just so happens to be a major vitamin A toxicity symptom. Dry eye happens to be one of the biggest symptoms that happens to people after they take Accutane. And I just told you they're giving out Accutane in a lot of these countries like India and Pakistan where people are having horrible side effects that are not going away. Dry eye being one of the biggest ones. So. Nice comments, Pierre. That's good. Will gave a comment about a different type of rice that he's tolerating well. I'm sorry. Simon was asking if the stream is lagging. I'm sorry if the stream's been lagging. With our cold weather here in Tucson, Tucson is not prepared for cold weather. We've had several, nights below freezing. And I know some of you out there are going, ooh, nights below freezing. Well, it's cold here. And like some people don't even insulate their pipes. That's how it doesn't get cold here. Like when people in colder areas and they have a heat wave and they're like, you watch on the news and they're like, a lot of people are dying because they don't have air conditioners. And I'm like in Arizona going, well, why don't you have an air conditioner? Why would you not have an air conditioner? And other people out in the cold areas are going, why would you not wrap your pipes? Which we do all wrap our pipes now. But, just when you live in different areas, you don't always prepare for things. But we've had cold weather here, colder than usual. And I think it's been affecting the internet. So anyway, sorry if it's lagging. Hope was saying Accutane is called something else in the US. There's isotretinoin is the technical name. There's Accutane, RO. They just add an RO at the start of it. To call it something different, but isotretinoin is the generic. They can't sell Accutane. If you want to know how they're poisoning you, Accutane was removed from the market in the US. Let me look that up. From WebMD, acne drug Accutane no longer sold. Okay. So that's the brand name. Brand name Accutane. Are they still selling the generic? Oh, here it goes. July 8th, 2009, Accutane won't be sold anymore, drug giant Hoffman La Roche Inc. has announced. Generic versions of the acne drug, called isotretinoin, are still available from several manufacturers. But Roche, which has sold the drug to 13 million patients since 1982, will not be one of them. This is how they bullshit you, right? The decision was made for business reasons, Roche announced in a news release. Those reasons include declining sales. Oh, they're pushing this. That's why they're doing it in other countries now. Accutane sales now make up less than 5% of the isotretinoin market. Wait. Accutane sales, the brand name, now make up less than 5% of the isotretinoin market. Here we go. Another big reason. Personal injury lawsuits, which Roche is aggressively defending. Accutane and other isotretinoin products. Accutane is isotretinoin. Accutane and other isotretinoin products are effective treatments for serious acne. Okay. But the drug can have extremely serious side effects, mental health problems, including depression, psychosis, and suicide. And when taken by pregnant women, miscarriage or birth defects. Roche has an aggressive program, I Pledge, to prevent use of Accutane by pregnant women, including signed pledges to use 2 forms of effective birth control. So, if you want to take Accutane, ladies, you have to use 2 forms of birth control. Guess what you're probably going to choose if you don't know better? You're going to take the regular birth control, the hormonal birth control, or you're going to put a copper IUD in there. You should really go watch on this channel my video about how birth control causes vitamin A toxicity and copper toxicity. It's such a weird coincidence that I've shown how vitamin A toxicity causes infertility and birth control pills raise the levels of vitamin A in the blood of the body, which is where it would cause the most problems. Such a coincidence. It's weird that I show that birth control pills cause copper toxicity in the blood, and they can put a copper wire in your cervix and make you infertile. These are such weird coincidences. And so if you want to take Accutane, which isotretinoin, which can cause birth defects so bad that they make you sign a pledge to use 2 forms of birth control. Birth control raises vitamin A in your blood. Isotretinoin is the active form of vitamin A. It's almost like there's a war on our women's fertility. Don't forget the suicide risk. And then when you see psychosis and the suicide risk and depression, remember to go look at that link I put up earlier about the neurotoxic effects of vitamin A and retinoids. Vitamin A will drive you crazy. Wait, I fixed a guy with PTSD by getting him on a low vitamin A diet. This is such a weird coincidence. Weird. So Gretchen said, thanks, I'm following your program, taking minerals and some supplements you suggest, lactoferrin, etc. Awesome. Any other suggestions or lifestyle practices to heal cholestasis, or just give it time? Most of the things that the program, if you haven't finished the program, there's a lot of stuff in there. Go through all the things in the program. I'm going to soon enough work on making a simplified version of the program so people can do it without having to invest so much time in learning all the things in the program. But time is this just takes time. Your liver has to heal itself. Remember, the liver can totally regenerate itself from a very small, like if you only had a little bit of your liver left, the liver could completely regenerate itself. Sometimes I wonder, I had this weird thought. This is just weird. This is just me like pondering things. I was like, well, what if they went in and cut out most of the old toxic liver? And then the body regenerated a completely new, not toxic liver, right? So like, what if there was the big portal vein coming out of the liver, and there's the big vein going into the liver to feed the liver, and then there's the big vein or the big artery going into the liver, and then the big vein coming out of it. Anyway, I could have those flipped because the liver may be backwards. Anyway, so what if if there was the two blood vessels going in like this, and you could just chop off the rest of the liver? You took off the pointy end, and you took off the big kind of butt end, and you just had that little middle part of the liver that has the main blood flow, and then you let it regenerate. That would take time. But one of the theories that Grant proposed in his books was that when you look at the liver research, the liver vitamin A toxicity research, where the vitamin A toxicity is an epidemic, or the epidemic of vitamin A toxicity video on this channel, I also redid that as a Twitter thread. Kids under 10 often had the highest vitamin A levels of anybody in their liver. And then all of a sudden, then it went down. Kind of was like the highest up to age 10, and then it kind of would come down, and then it would plateau, and then as they got older, it would go up again. What's happening to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds? What are their bodies doing? They're growing. They're growing 3-dimensionally, height, width, length. This means their liver is growing too, height, width, length. This means they're making brand new liver tissue that is not toxic yet. Do most people make it toxic? Yes. And that's why you have that little plateau, and then it goes up as they get older. Just wait until I present the data from the NHANES study that shows that as groups of people, as they get older, their vitamin A level in their blood goes up. And by the time they're in like their 60s and 70s, they're like just super shy of actual diagnosable vitamin A toxicity in their blood, which blood vitamin A, by the time you're toxic in your blood, you're guaranteed toxic. But could you also is this in the literature that people can be actually technically low on serum retinol, where they would be thought to be deficient, but they're taking ungodly amounts of vitamin A and their liver is completely toxic? Yes. So Don't go and self-interpret your serum retinol level, your blood vitamin A level. Don't go and self-interpret and be like, oh, I'm in the normal range. I'm fine. That doesn't mean anything. If you're high on blood vitamin A, you're guaranteed toxic. Guaranteed toxic. No doubt. But you could be low vitamin A and still be even more toxic in your liver. Let me give that. I've gone over this paper before. I need to do a Twitter thread on it. There was a guy who was taking tons of vitamin A supplements, and he was probably, I'm going to guess he was eating like a bunch of carrots and sweet potatoes too. But he was taking tons of vitamin A supplements for years. His blood vitamin A serum retinol was 18, which according to LabCorp's current standards is technically deficient. He was vitamin A deficient. I think he was taking 50,000 units of vitamin A retinol palmitate a day. And I'm going to guess he was also eating a bunch of high carotenoid foods too. Vitamin A deficient, taking tons of vitamin A a day. The doctors said, intelligent doctors here, they said, we think you're vitamin A toxic. We think you should stop the supplements. And I'm going to guess they also had him modify his diet. Stop eating spinach, carrots, sweet potatoes, whatever. Over the next 12 weeks, his blood vitamin A level went from an 18 to, if I recall correctly, 126 or something like that. It was either it was way out of bounds. It was either 92 or 126. It was somewhere way up there. That would rank up with like the top 3 vitamin A levels I've seen in practice. In 3 months, his vitamin A in his blood went from deficient to way, like almost double the high end of the range. This is why serum retinol is not useful if you are normal or low. It doesn't tell you how much you have in your liver, and I go over that in the vitamin A toxicity as an epidemic video. So people think they're going to go test their answer, and nope. The only answer you get guaranteed is if you're high out of range, then you are guaranteed toxic in your liver. But I fix people every day who are in the normal range or even low. The people who have the lowest vitamin A when they come to me are the sickest. The guy who had that 18, but he was taking tons of vitamin A, he was going in there because I'm pretty sure he was heading down. He had cirrhosis and he was heading towards liver failure. I believe his AST or his ALT was in like the thousands. It's supposed to be in the double digits, low double digits. Like I want AST and ALT between 10 and 26. And this guy was in the thousands, I believe. Or the thousands. So his liver was suffering, but that vitamin A was not escaping his liver. So just know blood vitamin A, I don't know of anybody else who has seen as many vitamin A levels as I have in the way that I look at them. But does it change anything I do? No, it doesn't change a single thing I do. Your blood vitamin A level, am I still going to have you on a low vitamin A diet? Yes. But yeah, lifestyle practices, if you look into the agitators, if you search on the work under agitators, a lot of times in the history of health practices, a lot of the things that we associate with health, with helping health, sun, exercise, sweating, heat like saunas, what else? Low stress or other things like that, or a certain amount of stress. A lot of these things used to be really healthy when people were less toxic. But as they get more toxic, if they do these agitators and they dump too much bile at once, it makes them feel worse. So now when people are so toxic, we have to be careful with these things. As an example, if you could go and do a sauna with the temperature and the length of time in it to a point where you felt better when you got out of the sauna and you didn't crash later, that would be good for you. That would be helping detox. If you did it to the point where you think, I'm going to push hard, I'm going to detox all this stuff out of my skin, I'm going to do it. And you make yourself feel like garbage after it. You just dumped a ton of toxic bile into your blood. That's why you feel terrible. And now your liver has to work to clean out the blood and it goes to your kidneys now, and it might come out through your skin and cause skin irritations or skin disease until your liver clears out all that bile that went into your blood, because that's the only way to get bile out of your blood. And the toxic stuff that goes with it is your liver. It comes back around to your liver in the bloodstream, and your liver has to pull it out. Or your kidneys dump it out in your pee, or your skin dumps it out through your skin. Kidneys don't like bile even more than your liver, and your skin really doesn't like bile because that's skin problems. It shows up as skin problems because when you dump toxicity out of your skin, it has nowhere to go, right? You just push it out. Let's say you push toxic bile, copper out onto your face. It has nowhere to go. So it just sits there and irritates your face. Why do a lot of people say with acne, you have to wash your face like twice a day? What do you think they're washing off of their skin? Toxic bile, maybe? Copper, maybe? Vitamin A, maybe? So that's why we don't want to push things too hard. But like the things that are agitators, the sun, exercise, sweating, heat, red light therapy, tanning beds, sunlight, whatever. If you push these things too hard and you feel worse, you did too much. Don't do that again. Do less. If you come out of those things feeling great and you don't crash later, that's a good amount. So those are things you can do to help. The more of these things you combine, though, the more likely you are to get over the hump and cause yourself a problem. So you got to be careful with it. You got to watch these things. What we teach in the program is for people to watch their own reactions, to watch how they respond to these things, and to kind of keep track of it as well as you can. And just know, like, if somebody did the program and they jumped in with every single thing at once, those of you who are in the program, you know what those people are like. They come back and they're like, what the heck? What did I just do to myself? And you're like, yeah, you kind of jumped straight from white belt to black belt. And now you don't deserve to be a black belt yet, and you're getting your ass kicked. That's what's happening. So we have to watch these things. Remember, the bile is the cause of it, and the bile is the solution. Push one too hard, you're going to suffer. If you do it too hard, you're going to feel worse. How many practitioners are out there saying, if you do too much of what I do, you could feel worse? I'm one of the few honest ones out there who says, you do this too hard. I'm not sitting here trying to make everybody change their lives and change their schedule to do all of my stuff every day. Like, do a coffee enema every day, and you got to do all these other things. You got to prep your food. You got to sprout your food, and you got to do no, your life is not livable that way. We're trying to change the foods that you buy. I'm a big fan of easy food preparation, not crazy complicated stuff. We have a whole recipes section in the program. Anyway, I got to get going to my inner circle group because they're waiting for me. Sorry I didn't get into tons of questions, but I hope I gave you guys a really good overview. Hope you all enjoyed it. Again, my website, you can find all of my website information and social media down in the description below. nutritiondetective.com is my main website. We do now, let me give the big announcement. We do have the Madness of Modern Nutrition, which is a free course open. For those of you who want to go and find it now, you can go on nutritiondetective.com. At the very top bar, there's a thing that says sign up for our email newsletter and get the free Madness of Modern Nutrition course. You can sign up there, and then we'll email you the information on how to get into that. People in the network have read it, and they really like it as an intro to people who are new to this work. Some people maybe who are in the network may even be learning some new things that they didn't read yet. So that is how you can get the free course from me, and you can sign up for our newsletter so you'll get all the announcements. So hope you enjoyed that. Hope you do enjoy it. And I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye now.